Today, you're going to hear from Dan Hart, a $100 million founder based in Los Angeles. He sold that company a few years ago, retired, got bored, and now he's back in business with both a record label and a new startup. In this episode, you'll hear from Dan about the powerful question that's helped him to take massive leaps forward in his business, a question you could ask yourself too. Secondly, you'll hear his secret to prepare himself for his most critical, high-stakes decisions. And thirdly, you'll hear Dan and I talk about the 5 factors found in ancient wisdom that dictate whether our dreams will come true or not. With no further ado, let's jump in with Dan Hart. All right, today I'm here with Dan Hart. He had a 9-figure business, exited, retired, got bored, got back into entrepreneurship, and now has a small record label and is working on another tech project. Dan is here with me in Austin, Texas, and we're sitting by the pool in a cabana, just hanging out.
Beautiful to be here. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Yeah, you got it. So tell me about the idea from Goldman Sachs, comparative advantage and like maximizing high performance for the top of the value chain.
Sounds great. So I was saying that I had many friends from college that went to work at Goldman Sachs as young associates in their early 20s. And Goldman took more seriously than any other place I'd seen getting maximum productivity out of those people. So they'd be willing to spend money to give those people free meals, free rides, free dry cleaning, anything it took so that they would spend more time working. And the observation was actually very simple. A lot of money had gone into training these people. They had highly specialized skills, and it was less expensive to leverage their time than it would be to have 2 or 3 or 4 of those people. And I was referring to an academic concept called comparative advantage. It's a concept in economics. A lot of people at Goldman know it. Anyone that studied economics would have likely run into it. And it's the idea that you should spend your time, whether you're an individual or a country, doing the thing that you have the most unique advantage in, even if you have absolute advantages in other areas. So an example that's often cited is if you have 2 countries, say the United States, the Dominican Republic, maybe the United States can produce bananas more efficiently than the Dominican Republic. Yet the United States can make movies or AI chips or advanced software even more efficiently than the Dominican Republic. So the result in a trading global economy is that the Dominican Republic should make bananas, the United States should make AI chips and movies, even if the United States is more productive on a per acre basis than the Dominican Republic at making bananas, because the opportunity cost of what the United States could be doing with that time is so high. And at Goldman, I saw them applying that pretty relentlessly to individuals. And the point I was about to make is you see that run up against resistance in our culture, because our culture is not always fully accepting of leveraging your time, only focusing on one thing, having other people serve you. I don't know if that goes back to just an equality ethos, that everyone should be independent, that no one should be in a servitude sort of class. That's so embedded in our culture, but it also causes people to not fully take advantage of their time. They feel like I should be willing to do anything. I should be willing to do my own email. I should be willing to do my own more mundane tasks. And there is, from a spiritual standpoint, there's something to that. But from a time management standpoint, it's definitely not the best way to lead a company or any big endeavor.
I know that growing up, I come from a farming family, basically on both sides. I grew up in the suburbs, but both my parents grew up around farms. And there's something really beautiful and powerful about all hands on deck.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And there's something also in athlete culture, myself growing up as a college athlete, that it's like you got to be the first in the gym and the last out. If not, you're not trying hard enough.
Yes.
Right? And I think that there's actually a lot of merit to both of those.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said about looking out for your family or your community and being ready to answer the call. And also think there's something about making the most of every opportunity. We only get to be an athlete for so long, and truly we only get to be an entrepreneur for so long. It all comes to an end at some point, right? And I think that's actually the counterpoint. If someone says, oh, are you too big for your britches, that you have to be handling, you can't handle your own email, or you can't do this, you can't do that. I think to me it's like, okay, so then what am I giving up if I do all my email, if I do my calendar, if I do all my grocery shopping, if I do get my oil changed in my car and not have someone else, like I drive somewhere versus them coming to me, or I drive to the physiotherapist instead of physio coming to me, or I drive to the masseuse versus the masseuse coming to me.
Yes.
These are all things I do. Like, those hours add up over the course of a year. And if I can get 20, 30, 40 hours a year back just because my masseuse, my physiotherapist, and my groceries all came to me instead of me going to them, what else could I be doing with that time?
Yes.
And if I could have hired another 4 people, or I could have in those 40 hours built, or acquired a company or done something like that, suddenly I think that puts in stark relief or in stark contrast.
You could almost think of it as selfish if you're not doing things that you could be doing that could be helping other people. Is a very radically different way to look at it.
Where else do you think we get this wrong?
Where do we get this wrong?
Where do we get this trade-off wrong? Is it like, we talked about time, we talked about maximizing the opportunity cost of every single moment. Do you think there's other places where maybe we take the wrong customers, or we take on the wrong staff, or we take on, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Let me think about that. I think that is true when you're driven by a single-minded metric. That often happens. Like, I am only going to maximize revenue, or I see often in the tech world, instead of my customers becoming my customers, the venture capital and investment community starts to become my customer. It starts subtly, but then it starts to take over, and it becomes, how do I get the next round raised? Well, I need to package things for the investment community. Well, I think this is what they want to see. They want to see these kind of customers saying these kind of things, and then you're not really servicing your customers anymore. You're creating a mirage to raise more money, and when you create a mirage, those things eventually collapse. So there is something to say, to be said for always being as centered as you can in your decision making. And looping back to one of the things we said earlier about how you spend your time, I like to have 2 different modes in my mind. One is, relentless comparative advantage, spend my time on the most important things, outsource everything else, is one mode. And I used to only have that mode. Then I realized I was losing something that wasn't accounted for in that system. So 2 examples of that are, sometimes manual labor tasks really help to ground me. So doing the dishes, right? If I think of it only in terms of, I could be doing another higher value added task, that may not be the best use of my time. But if I think about it as, I'm going to meditate while I'm doing the dishes, bring my presence to the dishes, let go of whatever happened in the morning, and now my next meeting is going to be that much better, I start to redefine the task in my mind from I'm doing the dishes to I'm investing in recentering myself. And then that is one of the most highest value added activities I can do. Another flavor of that has been in my relationship at home. There used to be things I didn't want to spend time doing. Then I redefined the task from, this is not taking out the trash, this is investing in my relationship. And when I think about it that way, that's one of the most important things I can do. I'd love to have an assistant covering my email inbox and my calendar so that I can invest in my relationship, because that's really important. And sometimes that looks like taking out the trash.
I think that something that was kind of a shock for me was I went to Europe, and my dear friend is from the Netherlands, and I was like, oh great, we got a locals know best situation here where he can take us to all the coolest restaurants. He grew up here after all. I'm not going to put anything into the planning because he's got it covered.
Yeah.
Like when he came to visit my home country, Canada, and I took him to my home province, we took him to Banff and to the Rocky Mountains. Like, I planned everything. I wanted to just show him the best of the best. Then I got to the Netherlands, and I think that I somewhat sold myself short. Because I hadn't gone through the process of considering what landmarks to check out or what food to seek out. I ended up not investing into kind of the contextual, the
Yes,
context.
I can see that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's when it hit me that we typically get what we put into something.
Yes.
And so if I put nothing into preparing for this trip aside from packing my bags and getting on an airplane, I'm probably not going to get as much out of the trip.
Yeah, you're less invested.
Less invested. And it's amazing how much just thinking about, well, is this restaurant close to that restaurant? We start thinking about like, oh, well, this is the arts district, or this is the Spanish district, or this is the whatnot. And I might be interested to go down this other rabbit hole and check out this other thing. So I think that that's like a very careful dance between I get what I invest into something versus how do I get comparative advantage.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And one of the ways I like to think about it is I want to free up my time to do the most important things to me. But what are the most important things to me? It may be researching a trip, because then I'm going to be invested and I'm going to have emotional satisfaction. That's what life is all about.
Yeah. So you're here in Austin. You came for this M&A workshop yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah, that we had, that private event. And any big takeaways from that? And then after that, I want to ask you and go way a different direction and talk about spirituality as well, to whatever extent you want to.
Sure, any extent is fine. So the M&A conference, I learned a lot of things, a lot of tactical details. I think the thing I remember most the next day was an exercise that the leader put us through of saying, close your eyes, imagine where you want your business to be in 5 years. We all did that, myself included. Now add a 0 to that.
And ladies and gentlemen, remember, Dan has had $100 million company before, so let's think about that.
Yeah, and then everyone laughs and are like, wow, that blows my mind. And then he said, okay, now do that again, add another 0. And then think backwards from that. What would have to be true today to make that true in 5 years? And regardless of the specifics, that I found that to be an extraordinarily valuable exercise that I'm going through in my mind, not just in the M&A context, but really in everything I'm doing in my businesses. What is an order or 2 orders of magnitude better than I could imagine? And then what has to happen today to make that possible?
That's so good. And so I heard Tom, who is one of our 2 teachers, I met him years ago. I was at his house, and he'd said a similar kind of thought-provoking question. In 5 years from now, what are you going to wish you'd done today?
Yeah.
Oh, man, Dan. Dude, that leveled me then. It levels me every single time. Because I think about, what do I wish I was doing 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not like super dissatisfied with my life right now. So, I'm not coming from that place, but more so just like, had I done what we learned yesterday 5 years ago, where would I be today?
Yes.
Now, I'm in full acceptance that I'm on my, divine journey and the timing is right for everything. And so, no regrets there. It's just a stretch of the mind, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And I often think we all know people that are maybe at an earlier stage of entrepreneurship than we are. They talk a lot about ideas. I want to do this, I want to do that, but maybe they're not fully executing. And you can kind of see it. You can see that the opportunity is there, but you're not fully confident in yourself, or you're not fully going for it, and you can see it. And I try to imagine, what is someone else that's at a higher entrepreneurship, consciousness level than me? How are they looking at me and saying the same thing? What is Dan not doing that he could be doing that someone else could see? And I try, to the extent possible, to to put myself in that perspective.
Humbling.
On myself.
Yeah, it's humbling.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. But what? And I mean, you're eons beyond me, and yet even in my, modest position, when I look at other, totally, dude. And I'm just like, oh man, it's, what it makes me think of is like, in when we do our conscious living and workshops and our conscious communication workshops, it's like, if someone has a piece of corn on their cheek,
yes.
but they don't know it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's very awkward.
And they're walking around their life, as if all's perfect and they got a piece of corn on their cheek. And so, in the consciousness workshop, I mean, the whole thing about a consciousness workshop is like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I thinking what I'm thinking? Why am I feeling what I'm feeling? And it's oftentimes obvious to others before it's obvious to ourselves.
Yes,
We're like the last to get the memo.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about, yes, you were a client of my company, Great Assistant, and thank you for doing that. Probably where we really connected is on spirituality.
Yes.
Yeah. If you have some early thoughts or some highlight thoughts, where do you think is the intersection of spirituality and entrepreneurship?
Well, it's a great question. There's a ton of overlap. I feel like I've been on a spiritual journey and an entrepreneurial journey for 25, 30 years, and it just keeps expanding what it means to me. I think early on in my career, a lot of it was having courage to follow my own voice. And I remember I have a friend who's an author, and he writes about what's your entrepreneurial currency. And his point is everyone has something different, but what's important is getting in touch with your own. Some people, it's about money. Some people, it's about lifestyle. Some people, it's about courage. For me, it's always been about courage, facing my own fears,
Wow.
overcoming them. More recently, I've adopted a meditation practice. I've been doing a lot of yoga, trying to stay very centered. And I've been trying, I can't say always succeeding, but trying to implement something I learned in meditation. In the tradition I'm in, there's a concept of not making any decisions. And that sounds like the opposite of entrepreneurship, right? You need to be decisive, you need to make decisions all day. But the idea is instead of getting your mind around something, attaching to it, and thinking you have to make a logical decision, it's really almost opening your heart and then letting whatever's going to happen.
Wow.
And the level of trust required in that gets higher and higher as the stakes get higher.
Yeah.
So it's easy to do when, I'm just brainstorming ideas with my notebook and talking to my friends and getting feedback. I'll just go with the flow. But now I've raised investor capital. They have expectations. I don't want to let them down. Or I've hired employees and I want to provide a stable environment for them. And I found fear tends to kick in. I want to do the right thing for my employees and I feel afraid I'll let them down. So now I'm being driven by fear. And when I'm driven by fear, my mind is coming up with, I need to do X, Y, and Z. The faith that it takes to say, I'm not going to pay any attention to that voice in myself. Even though my heart cares about these goals, the best way to get there is to open up in trust. And part of the trust is maybe what I want to happen, which is my business has a lot of revenue and my employees all do well and I do well. Maybe that's not what's meant to happen here. And a lot of people, myself included, can see that in failure in retrospect, but can you see it in the present moment that I'm not authoring the outcome? I'm just trying to be as open as possible and let things flow. So I've been experimenting with that in my new venture. It's the first company that I never decided to start. It just kind of started itself through me. And the challenge now is to try to maintain that and not grip onto it as it grows.
Wow. I think back to the two things. One is in boardroom meetings, when we're making decisions, I oftentimes find that the correct decision is not a splash of paint on an empty canvas, but rather the bust that gets revealed by chipping away the unnecessary pieces.
Yes, that's a great way to say it.
You know what I mean?
Yes, it's already there.
The right decision is already there. It's about just finding it. And so Charles Kettering in 1956, he's an inventor, he said, a problem well defined is half solved.
Yes.
Yeah. Getting to the Bhagavad Gita, which I'm studying at this time, talks about 5 things have to be true for anything to happen.
Yeah.
And 4 of them are in our control and 1 is the divine.
Mm.
And so the 4 that are in our control are a decision. Are we playing basketball or are we playing ice hockey? What's it going to be?
Yep.
If you don't make a decision, you're not playing either. Okay, so we've got a decision. We have a field of play. Okay, so I've made a decision. Now I got to make sure I'm on the field of play, whether it's basketball or hockey. I got to make sure I have the right tools. Do I have hockey skates or sneakers? Okay. If I have hockey skates trying to play basketball, not going to go too well for me,
Yes.
right? And lastly, effort. The right amount of effort for the correct amount of duration in the correct direction. If I need to go east, but I'm running west, it's not going to go too well for me, right?
Yes.
Those are all within our control, but then there's the 5th part, which is the divine.
Yes.
Now, if any one of those 5 is missing, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You could be doing everything right, but if it's not in the divine will, it's not going to happen. The vexing part to me is it could be in the divine will,
Yes.
but I'm not doing my part
Yes.
because my ego's in the way, or something else like that.
Yeah, and I've had that experience, that feeling. You never know for sure, but that feeling of like the divine will was there, but I didn't show up right.
Ugh.
And then it's like then the divine will come back in another cycle in a different form, but it's trying to teach you the same lesson. And then sometimes I don't show up right the second time, and then it's going to come back because it may look like a different company or a different set of people or a different geography or a different market, but it's the same lesson that you need to learn to expand to your own next level.
What were you telling me about sometimes if you've got a tricky situation, you'll wait until after a yoga class or something? What is it that you said?
Oh, I was just saying I had a phenomenal teacher teaching Kundalini yoga in Los Angeles where I live, and she was and is just really great at holding space and opening up everyone's heart. And I always felt so clear after that class. And that was on Wednesday mornings. And so I would book my most important conversations for the week for 1 o'clock Wednesday. So if you got that slot, you knew it was important. It could be a difficult conversation.
Yeah.
It could be, an amazing, expansive conversation. But either way, if I wanted my most presence, that was my best slot for the week.
I'm like, I'm in Dan's post yoga slot. This isn't going to be good. No. He's either going to invest in me or he's going to fire me. One of the two.
I was inspired by a guy that I've worked with, only tangentially, but I know him pretty well. He is an entrepreneur, and he does things a little bit differently. He does lots of meetings and Zoom calls, and every meeting or Zoom call, he shows up, and all he's thinking is, who am I across from? What's their background? How can I bring empathy and presence to this situation? And somehow that's like all he does, and then it's over. He's really good at letting it go. I'm gonna do it again. It's the next meeting. And you can almost see at the beginning of the meeting, he's loading up the context. And the reason he's loading up the context is because he's not carrying it around. He's not mapping it out and trying to control it. And I'm going to have this meeting for this purpose to leverage it, to get this other person to leverage. He's not thinking that.
Wow.
He's just thinking, I'm here, do my best to bring love and empathy, and then things will work out.
Wow.
And it's worked out really well for him.
Wow.
So I've learned a lot.
He's like tapped in.
Yes, he's
Yeah.
tapped in.
So I said something prior to this recording starting. I said, sometimes people ask me, Tim, conscious communication, conscious living, like, how does that possibly fit with what you're doing with mergers and acquisitions or entrepreneurship or whatnot? What was your answer?
My answer for me?
The answer you told me.
Well, yeah. What else is there?
Yeah, what else is
what
there?
else is there?
Yeah.
Conscious communication is really all there is. And one view you could take is that all of this that we do in business is a pretext for sharing your love and your heart. And so, is the divine will there for me to do an M&A roll-up? I don't have a formula, for knowing whether divine will is there, but I think one influencing factor is, will this put me in rooms with people where I can spread love, add value on a bigger scale? And am I doing that from the right place? And does the divine want that to happen? And if it does, business can be a great tool for leverage. It puts you in, we're together here for business purposes, pull this together, and it can put you in rooms that you never would have been in otherwise.
And now we're sitting by a pool.
Yes, by a pool in beautiful Austin, Texas.
Anything else you'd like to share? Just any nudge you're feeling on the inside to lean into the spark of inspiration?
Yeah, I think maybe just, what I was alluding to in my last couple statements there is finding ways to leverage not just the skills we have, but the unique spark, the unique divine, the unique love that we all have. Really just keeping in mind, if you're an entrepreneur, is this decision I'm making, is this business I'm buying or expanding, will it increase that love? And I think if the answer is yes, it's more likely that the other mechanics, the deal craft and so forth, will come together. If the answer is no, you could be really good at putting together deals and just steer way off your path, way to the right into the bumpy field, and eventually it's going to collapse. And, the divine, or whatever you want to call it, will bring you back to where you're supposed to be. So I do my best to keep that in mind, and I'm not always successful at it, but I do get better at recognizing the signs early on. Like one of the things they say in my meditation practice is, when you're in the flow, you're in tune with yourself, you're in tune with your community, you're in tune with the divine, you'll feel that flow. When you start to drift off, it's like the speed bumps on the side of a road. At first, it's just a gentle reminder. The universe is telling you, just get back, in the flow. And if you listen to that, you'll never get too far off, right? But if you ignore that sign, I'll just ignore that. I'll go more to the right. Well, pretty soon you're in a wreck. So I've gotten better at trusting the smaller signals and making adjustments in more subtle ways. But certainly I'm not an expert. I'm glad to be here talking to you, because I always learn in all of our conversations.
That's so cool. So if anyone wanted to follow what you're up to, is there a website, or follow you on LinkedIn or X or whatever?
Sure. Yeah. The company I'm doing now is currently in stealth mode, so there's no website, but you can go to my LinkedIn profile. Dan Hart. I think it's linkedin.com/HartDan.
I think it's /in/
/in/
yeah.
/HartDan.
I can link it up below in the show
Yeah,
notes.
and you'll see a picture of me skiing on the ski slopes, so you'll know that's my LinkedIn profile. That's a great way to track me.
Thanks so much, Dan.
All right, thanks for having me here, and appreciate the time.
For more interviews, articles, and tools to support you along the way on your $100 million journey, be sure to head over to executiveclub.substack.com. Again, that's executiveclub.substack.com.